The Galactic Council chamber was massive, stretching nearly a kilometer in every direction. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of different species sat in their designated sections, each area modified to suit the environmental needs of its occupants. Some sections were filled with water for aquatic species. Others had different atmospheric mixtures or gravity settings. The chamber represented the pinnacle of galactic cooperation, a place where conflicts were supposed to be resolved through words rather than weapons. Today, that ideal was about to be shattered. Katie Morrison sat in the human delegation section with her two assistants, Danny Price and Nicole Foster. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years now, ever since humanity had been granted observer status. In that time, she had grown accustomed to the condescending attitudes of the older species. They treated humans like children, patting them on the head while dismissing their concerns. It was frustrating, but Katie had learned patience. She knew something they didn't. The current speaker was Ambassador Zekthor from the Kral Dominion. The Kral were a reptilian species, standing nearly 3 meters tall with scales that shifted between dark green and black. They were a warrior culture, proud and aggressive with a history of conquering weaker species. The Galactic Council had allowed them membership decades ago, hoping it would civilize them. It hadn't worked very well. Zekthor's voice boomed through the translation devices that allowed all species to understand each other. His words were formal at first, discussing trade disputes and territorial boundaries. Katie listened with half her attention, reviewing reports on her datapad. Then Zekthor said something that made her look up sharply. The Kral Dominion hereby declares its intention to annex the Sol system, including the planet designated as Earth. The chamber erupted. Delegates from peaceful species gasped in shock. Others began shouting questions. Chairman Veldan, a tall, thin being from the Arithi species, called for order. His silver skin reflected the chamber's lights as he gestured for silence. Ambassador Zekthor, Veldan said carefully, "Surely you misspoke. Earth is a protected developing world. The humans have only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last 5 years. They are under council protection as outlined in the preservation protocols." Zekthor made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. The Kral Dominion no longer recognizes these outdated protocols. The humans are primitives who have barely explored beyond their own planet. They have a population of over 11 billion beings, most living in squalor on their overcrowded world. They possess limited resources and even more limited technology. They will make excellent workers for our mining operations in the outer territories. Katie felt Danny tense beside her. She placed a hand on his arm, shaking her head slightly. Not yet. Let them talk. Counselor Miraset from the Tholian Collective stood, her crystalline body chiming softly. This is outrageous. The Council has always protected developing species. We cannot allow this precedent. Then try to stop us, Zekthor replied. The Kral fleet is already being assembled. We will arrive at Earth in 3 standard weeks. If the humans surrender peacefully, we will be merciful. If they resist, we will demonstrate why the Kral Dominion has never lost a war. More chaos erupted. Some delegates called for sanctions. Others demanded military intervention. A few species, Katie noted with disgust, remained silent. They were probably calculating whether they could profit from the situation. Chairman Veldan looked troubled. Ambassador Morrison, you have been silent. Does Earth have a response to this threat? Katie stood slowly. All eyes in the chamber turned to her. She was small compared to most of the delegates, barely 1.7 meters tall. She wore a simple blue suit, her brown hair pulled back in a professional style. To many in the chamber, she looked young and inexperienced. That was exactly what she wanted them to think. Chairman Veldan honored delegates, she began, her voice calm and clear. Earth thanks the Council for its concern. However, I must inform you that if the Kral Dominion proceeds with this invasion, it will be making the single worst decision in the history of their species. Zekthor laughed again. Is that a threat, little human? Your entire fleet consists of 12 patrol ships and 2 cargo vessels. We have seen your military assessments. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow. You cannot even project force beyond your own moon. What exactly do you think you can do against the might of the Kral Armada? Katie smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Ambassador Zekthor, has your intelligence division provided you with detailed information about human history? We know enough, Zekthor said dismissively. Your species is young. You have had some internal conflicts, but nothing that would prepare you for real war. You fight with chemical projectiles and primitive explosives. You are barely out of your industrial age. I see, Katie said. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with several key delegates. Chairman, I would like to request that Earth's observer status be upgraded to full membership, effective immediately. This caused another round of shocked murmurs. Veldan looked confused. Ambassador Morrison, while I appreciate your courage in this difficult moment, full membership requires unanimous council approval and a demonstration of technological and social advancement. This is not the time for such discussions. On the contrary, Chairman, I believe this is exactly the time. Earth has been patient. We have followed your rules. We have shared our culture and our knowledge. We have been model observers. But if the Council cannot protect us, then we must protect ourselves. And to do that effectively, we need full membership status. This is absurd, Zekthor interjected. Chairman, do not waste time with these delaying tactics. The humans are stalling because they know they are helpless. Katie turned to face the Kral ambassador directly. Ambassador Zekthor, I want to make something absolutely clear. I am not asking the Council to protect us. I am not begging for help. I am simply requesting that Earth be granted the same rights and privileges as every other species in this chamber. Because when your fleet arrives at Earth, and when Earth defends itself, I want it to be completely legal under galactic law. There was something in her tone that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. Councillor Brenzik from the Vortan Imperium, a military-focused species, leaned forward with interest. Ambassador Morrison, Brenzik said in his deep voice, you speak as though Earth has some hidden capability. Our sensors have surveyed your system extensively. We see no evidence of a significant military force. That's correct, Katie said. You see no evidence? That should probably concern you more than comfort you. Katie turned back to her datapad and entered a specific code. Chairman Veldan, I am transmitting a message to Earth's Defense Command. With your permission, I would like to put their response on the main viewing screen. Veldan hesitated, then nodded. The massive holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life. A man appeared wearing a dark military uniform. He had short gray hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to assess everyone in the chamber instantly. This is General Jake Palmer, commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, the man said. Ambassador Morrison has informed me of the Kral Dominion's intentions. On behalf of Earth's government and people, I have the following message for Ambassador Zekthor. Bring everything you have. You're going to need it. The transmission ended. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Zekthor laughed long and loud. Magnificent. The primitives have spirit. Very well, human. My fleet will arrive in 3 weeks. We will see if your bravado matches your capability. I look forward to enslaving a species with such entertaining delusions of grandeur. Katie sat down slowly. Nicole leaned over and whispered, Did we just do what I think we did? Yes, Katie replied quietly. We just announced to the entire galaxy that Earth is ready for war. But are we? Danny asked nervously. Katie didn't answer immediately. She thought about the secret meetings over the past 5 years. The hidden construction facilities scattered throughout the solar system. The experimental weapons programs. The thousands of volunteers training for combat in conditions that would kill most galactic species. The brutal, efficient war machine that humanity had been building since the moment they realized they were alone in a dangerous universe. The Kral think they understand warfare, Katie finally said. They've studied our history. They've seen our old conflicts. They think they know what humans are capable of. And they don't? Nicole asked. Katie's expression was grim. They have no idea. They looked at our wars and saw primitive violence. They didn't understand what they were really seeing. Every weapon we've ever created. Every strategy we've ever devised. Every hard lesson learned from thousands of years of killing each other. They think that makes us weak and divided, she paused, watching as delegates filed out of the chamber, many casting nervous glances at the human section. They're about to learn that it makes us very, very dangerous. Back on Earth, General Jake Palmer stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva. The room was filled with holographic displays showing the solar system from multiple angles. Officers from every Earth nation worked at control stations, their faces serious and focused. 3 weeks passed in what felt like both an eternity and an instant. Across Earth, People went about their daily lives with a mixture of anxiety and defiant determination. The governments had announced the threat, but they had also been clear. Earth was ready. Trust in the military. Trust in the preparation. Trust that humanity would prevail. On the edge of the solar system, near the orbit of Neptune, sensors detected the first signs of the Kral fleet's arrival. The fabric of space rippled as ships began dropping out of faster-than-light travel. One by one, the massive Kral warships appeared, their dark hulls bristling with weapons and armor. Admiral Zarkos stood on the command deck of his flagship, the destroyer of worlds, watching his fleet assemble. He was old for a Kral, nearly 200 standard years with scales that had faded to a distinguished gray. He had commanded fleets for 7 decades and had never known defeat. This mission was supposed to be simple, almost boring. Crush a primitive species, enslave the survivors, move on. Status report, Zarkos commanded in the Kral language, his voice a rumbling growl. His tactical officer, Tekmar, consulted the sensor displays. All ships have arrived successfully, Admiral. Total count 203 warships. No mechanical issues. The fleet is ready to proceed, and the human defenses, as expected, Admiral. We detect 12 small patrol craft at approximately the orbit of their 4th planet, the red one they call Mars. No other military presence detected. The patrol craft are maintaining a defensive formation but making no aggressive moves. Zarkos made a satisfied sound. They know they cannot win. Perhaps they will be wise enough to surrender without resistance. His second-in-command, Commander Drackle, wasn't so sure. Admiral, I recommend caution. The human ambassador's words at the council were unusual. She seemed confident. Primitives often display false bravado when faced with superior force, Zarkos replied. It is a psychological defense mechanism. They convince themselves they are brave to mask their terror. We have seen it countless times. Yes, Admiral, but something troubles me about these humans. What troubles you? Their history, Admiral. I reviewed it thoroughly as you ordered. They are an incredibly violent species. In their last major global conflict, over 70 million of them died. They deployed atomic weapons against their own kind. They created diseases as weapons. They showed a level of brutality that shocked even our own military analysts. Zarkos waved a clawed hand dismissively. They fight like animals, yes. But fighting among themselves with primitive weapons is different from facing a superior military force with advanced technology. They have no space combat experience. They have no energy shields. Their weapons cannot even penetrate our armor. This will be over quickly. The fleet began moving forward, engines glowing as they accelerated toward the inner solar system. The formation was classic Kral doctrine, a spearhead of heavy cruisers at the front, followed by the main battle group with lighter frigates protecting the flanks and rear. It was a formation that had crushed dozens of species over the centuries. As they passed the orbit of Uranus, the human patrol craft began retreating. Zarkos watched with satisfaction. See, they run. They know they cannot stand against us, but Tekmar was frowning at his sensors. Admiral, I'm detecting some unusual readings. What kind of readings? Energy fluctuations. Very faint. Scattered throughout the system. It could be interference from the star or perhaps the asteroid belt, but what? The pattern seems artificial, Admiral. As if something is masking its presence. Zarkos considered this. Could the humans have cloaking technology? Impossible, Admiral. They barely have functional energy shields. Cloaking requires technology centuries beyond their current level. Then it's nothing. Proceed with the invasion. The fleet continued its advance. They passed Saturn, the giant planet with its magnificent rings. Still no significant resistance. The 12 human patrol craft continued their retreat, staying just ahead of the Kral fleet's range. They're leading us somewhere, Drackle observed. Let them, Zarkos replied. What can they possibly do? Even if they have a few hidden weapons platforms, we outnumber and outgun them completely. We could lose half our fleet and still achieve total victory. As they approached Jupiter, Tekmar's console began sounding alarms. Admiral! The energy signatures are intensifying. I'm reading multiple contacts. No, wait, dozens of contacts. Hundreds! Specify. Zarkos barked. I'm trying, Admiral, but the readings are confusing. It's as if... Admiral, something is dropping stealth fields all around us. On the main viewing screen, space itself seemed to shimmer and fold. And then, like a curtain being pulled back, Earth's true defense fleet revealed itself. Ships appeared everywhere. Small fighters, medium cruisers, massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest Kral vessels. They emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, from orbital positions that had seemed empty, from hiding spots in the asteroid belt, from positions throughout the inner and outer solar system. The stealth technology that had concealed them flickered away, revealing a fleet that numbered in the thousands. Zarkos stared at the tactical display in absolute shock. His mind refused to process what he was seeing. This is impossible. We surveyed this system. We watched them for months. There were only 12 ships. Admiral, Tekmar said, his voice shaking. I count over 4,000 human warships. And there are additional contacts. Automated defense platforms, weapon satellites, drone swarms. Admiral, we are completely surrounded. Aboard the Earth Defense Force flagship Vengeance, Captain Lisa Grant sat in the command chair, watching the Kral fleet realize their mistake. She was 42 years old, a career military officer who had commanded everything from submarines to orbital platforms. She had been chosen to lead the Vengeance because of her tactical genius and her absolute calm under pressure. Captain, said her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Parker, the Kral fleet is in disarray. They're trying to reform their formation. Let them, Lisa said calmly. Comms, open a channel to all ships. This is the moment we've trained for. Everyone knows their assignments. Execute Protocol Hammer. Throughout the human fleet, captains and crews acknowledged the order. Protocol Hammer was the opening move of Earth's defensive strategy, designed by military tacticians who had studied every space battle in science fiction and every real battle in human history. It was aggressive, overwhelming, and utterly ruthless. The human fleet began moving. The Kral expected them to charge forward in a disorganized mob as primitives might do. Instead, the fleet split into precisely coordinated strike groups. Each group had a specific target and a specific purpose. On the Destroyer of Worlds, alarms were screaming. Admiral, Tekmar shouted over the noise. The humans are maneuvering. Multiple attack vectors. They're surrounding us. Zarkos finally shook off his shock and roared orders. All ships, defensive formation. Activate shields. Charge weapons. We are still the superior force. We will crush them. The Kral fleet began to respond, but they were too slow. The humans struck first. The Vengeance led the primary assault, her massive railguns firing projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The tungsten rounds hit the Kral shields with devastating force. The shields held for a moment, then collapsed. The projectiles tore through armor plating designed to withstand energy weapons, but not kinetic impacts at those velocities. 3 Kral cruisers exploded in the first salvo. What are those weapons? Drakel gasped. Primitive kinetic projectiles, Tekmar replied, checking his database, but accelerated to impossible velocities. Their railgun technology is decades ahead of our estimates. All across the battlefield, human ships demonstrated weapons and tactics the Kral had never encountered. Missile swarms launched from hidden platforms, hundreds of nuclear-tipped warheads converging on single targets. The Kral had banned nuclear weapons centuries ago as barbaric and unnecessary. They had never developed defenses against them. A Kral battleship's shields collapsed under the impact of 30 nuclear explosions occurring simultaneously. The ship itself was vaporized. Fighter squadrons piloted by humans who had grown up playing video games and flight simulators executed maneuvers that would crush the internal organs of most species. They wove through Kral formations, targeting weak points with precision weapons, then vanishing before return fire could track them. Commander Alex Turner led one such squadron, his fighter screaming through the void at speeds that made his console scream warnings about structural integrity. He ignored them. He had trained for this his entire adult life. Gold Squadron, he called over the radio. Target the cruiser at Mark 7. Hit the engine section. Let's see if these lizards can fly without propulsion. His squadron responded with precision. 12 fighters converged on the Kral cruiser from different angles, missiles and energy weapons concentrating fire on the same point. The cruiser's engines exploded, leaving the massive ship drifting and helpless. Gold Leader, one of his pilots called. I've got 3 bandits on my tail. On it, Alex replied. He pulled his fighter through a turn that generated forces strong enough to make him grunt against the pressure. His flight suit compressed, forcing blood to his brain. The Kral fighters tried to follow but couldn't match his turn radius. One crashed into an asteroid. Protocol Anvil was not designed for mercy. It was designed for total annihilation of enemy forces. Every human ship received the order simultaneously and began executing their assigned roles with mechanical precision. The Krall had chosen death over surrender, and humanity was prepared to deliver it. Captain Lisa Grant watched the tactical display aboard the Vengeance as her fleet moved into position. She felt no joy in what was about to happen, but she also felt no hesitation. The Krall had come to enslave Earth. They had threatened her home, her family, her entire species. What happened next was entirely their choice. "Tactical," she said calmly. "Deploy the Hellfire drones." Lieutenant Ben Parker's fingers moved across his console. Deploying Hellfire swarms, 2,000 drones launching now. Throughout the human fleet, carrier ships opened their hangar bays and released swarms of small, fast drones. Each drone was barely 3 meters long, equipped with a basic AI, a targeting system, and a single nuclear warhead. They were cheap to produce, difficult to shoot down, and absolutely devastating when used in mass. The Krall point defense systems tried to engage the drones, but there were too many. For every drone destroyed, 5 more got through. The drones didn't try to evade. They simply accelerated directly toward their targets at maximum speed. The first wave hit a Krall destroyer. 15 nuclear explosions blossomed against its shields simultaneously. The shields overloaded and collapsed. The second wave hit the unprotected hull. The destroyer came apart in a brilliant flash of light and debris. Admiral Zarkos watched in horror as the drones tore through his fleet. "Where are they all coming from? How many of these weapons do they have?" "Estimates suggest tens of thousands, Admiral," Tekmar replied, his voice hollow. "They're being manufactured in real time. The humans have multiple production facilities throughout their system." "In real time? During the battle?" "Yes, Admiral. Their industrial capacity is far beyond our projections." This was another factor the Krall had miscalculated. Human industry had been refined through centuries of warfare. The ability to mass-produce weapons quickly and efficiently was a skill learned during World Wars, Cold Wars, and dozens of other conflicts. Earth's factories could churn out drones, missiles, and ammunition at a rate that seemed impossible to species who had known peace for generations. Commander Alex Turner and his fighter squadron were engaging Krall interceptors in a deadly dance through the debris field. The Krall pilots were skilled, but they had been trained in simulators and ceremonial combats. Alex had grown up on a steady diet of flight simulators, arcade games, and military training that pushed human reflexes to their absolute limit. "Gold Squadron, break and scatter," Alex ordered as a wing of Krall fighters approached. "Make them chase you into the drone field." His pilots obeyed instantly, each one peeling off in a different direction. The Krall fighters took the bait, pursuing individual targets. They followed the human fighters directly into the path of a Hellfire drone swarm. "Now," Alex called, a hard reverse. The human fighters executed simultaneous flip-and-burn maneuvers, using their thrusters to rapidly decelerate and change direction. The Krall fighters, unable to match the maneuver, shot past them and straight into the drone swarm. Nuclear fire consumed them. "That's another 6 down," Alex reported. "Gold Squadron is Winchester on missiles, returning to the Vengeance for rearm." "Negative, Gold Leader." Lisa Grant's voice came through the comm. "Proceed to Rally Point Delta. The Atlas is set up for fast turnaround. You'll be back in the fight in 10 minutes. Copy that." Gold Squadron heading to the Atlas. The Atlas was one of Earth's mobile rearmament ships, a vessel designed specifically to get fighters back into combat as quickly as possible. It was another innovation born from human warfare experience, where the ability to sustain operations often determined victory. As the space battle raged, the tactical situation continued to deteriorate for the Krall. They had expected to face primitive opponents, perhaps with some clever tricks, but nothing like this. Every assumption they had made was being shattered. Their energy weapons, which should have been devastating against human ships, were finding it difficult to achieve solid hits. Human vessels used unpredictable maneuvering patterns, sudden accelerations, and creative use of debris for cover. When the Krall weapons did hit, they encountered ablative armor that dispersed the energy, or reflective coatings that bounced beams away at unexpected angles. Human weapons, by contrast, were brutally effective. Railguns fired solid slugs that shields couldn't stop. Missiles used multiple guidance systems that made them nearly impossible to jam. Nuclear warheads provided devastating yields that no amount of armor could completely protect against. But perhaps the most terrifying weapon in the human arsenal was their tactical doctrine itself. The Krall fought according to established rules and honor codes. Humans fought to win by any means necessary. Captain Nathan Cole commanded the destroyer Retribution, a mid-sized vessel that was now closing on a damaged Krall cruiser. The cruiser's engines were crippled, its shields down, its weapons still firing but with reduced effectiveness. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "the target is disabled. Should we move to the next target?" "Negative," Nathan replied. "That ship still has weapons." "Hit it again." "Full missile spread." "Sir, that's over 300 missiles. The target is already defenseless." Nathan's expression was hard. "The target is still shooting at our ships. Until it stops being a threat, we keep hitting it. Fire." The Retribution launched its missiles. The Krall cruiser, already dying, was torn apart by the overwhelming barrage. It was brutal, excessive, and completely in line with human military doctrine. Never give an enemy a chance to recover. This approach shocked and horrified the Krall. In their culture, warriors showed mercy to defeated opponents. It was a matter of honor. Humans had learned a different lesson from their countless wars. Mercy could get you killed. Finish the enemy completely, then worry about honor. On the Destroyer of Worlds, Admiral Zarkos was trying desperately to organize a fighting retreat. Half his fleet was gone. The survivors were scattered, damaged, and demoralized. The humans were everywhere, attacking from multiple angles with perfect coordination. "Admiral," Commander Drackle said urgently, "we need to withdraw completely. Pull back to the outer system, make the jump to faster than light speed, and regroup at our nearest military base. If we run, we abandon our honor," Zarkos replied. "If we stay, we abandon our lives, Admiral. This battle is lost. We need to survive to warn the Dominion about what we've encountered here." Zarkos knew Drackle was right. His pride wanted to fight to the death, but his responsibility as a commander demanded he preserve what remained of his fleet. The Dominion needed to know that humans were not primitives. They were a threat unlike any the Krall had ever faced. "All ships," he broadcast, "execute retreat pattern Zeta 7. Fall back to the outer system. Prepare for faster-than-light jump." The remaining Krall ships began breaking off from combat, their engines flaring as they accelerated away from the human fleet. But the humans weren't going to let them go that easily. "Sir," Ben Parker reported to Lisa Grant, "the Krall are attempting to withdraw." "I can see that, Lieutenant. Comms get me General Palmer." A moment later, the general's face appeared on her screen. He was in the war room on Luna Base, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire battle. "Captain Grant," he said, "good work out there. The Krall are running. Should we let them go, sir?" Jake Palmer's expression was grim. "What do you think, Captain?" "You're the one out there," Lisa considered. Letting the Krall escape would allow them to report back to their Dominion. That could bring more enemies to Earth. But it could also serve as a warning to other species about what happened when you attacked humanity. "Sir, I think we should let some of them escape. Enough to spread the word about what happened here. But not enough to make them think they could try again with a bigger fleet." "My thoughts exactly, Captain. Let's say we allow 30% to escape. Does that sound reasonable?" "Yes, sir. That gives them about 60 ships out of the 200 they brought. Enough to be a functional fleet, but not enough to pose a real threat if they decide to come back." "Make it happen, Captain. And Captain, make sure Admiral Zarkos is one of the survivors. I want him to personally deliver the message to his superiors." "Understood, sir. Grant out." Lisa turned to her tactical officer. "Ben, identify which Krall ships are in the best condition. We're going to let approximately 60 of them escape. The rest we destroy before they reach the jump point." "Aye, Captain. Designating targets now." The word went out to the fleet. Human ships began targeting specific Krall vessels while allowing others to continue their retreat. It was calculated brutality. The Krall who escaped would carry the message. Earth was not to be threatened. Commander Alex Turner and Gold Squadron had rearmed and were back in the fight. They were assigned to harass the retreating Krall fleet without destroying them. It was a difficult mission that required precision and restraint, two qualities that fighter pilots didn't usually associate with combat. "Gold Squadron," Alex called. "We're on shepherd duty. Keep the Krall moving toward the jump point, but don't destroy them unless they try to fight back. If they shoot at you, you're cleared to defend yourselves." The Krall fleet's escape had been monitored carefully by Earth's defense forces. General Jake Palmer sat in the Luna Base Command Center, watching holographic displays track the enemy ships as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Around him, officers worked at their stations, ensuring that every departing vessel was logged and tracked. "Sir," Colonel Amy Foster said, approaching his command station, "all enemy ships have successfully jumped. We have their trajectories. They're heading back to crawl space as expected." Jake nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the displays. "And our losses?" 17 ships destroyed, 43 damaged but repairable. Personnel casualties are at 412 dead, just over 1,000 wounded. Given the size of the enemy fleet, those numbers are remarkably low. "Every single one of those 400 people is a tragedy," Jake replied quietly. "But yes, it could have been much worse." "What's the status of the fleet?" "Ready and eager, sir. Many captains are requesting permission to pursue the crawl. They want to ensure the enemy doesn't regroup and try again." Jake considered this carefully. The strategic situation had changed dramatically in the last few hours. Earth had proven its military capability, but allowing the crawl to return home and report their defeat would serve multiple purposes. Other species would learn what happened. The Dominion would understand that Earth was too dangerous to attack. Fear would spread through the galaxy, but there was a risk. If the Krall leadership decided to launch a revenge attack with their full military might, Earth could face thousands of ships instead of just 200. It would be better to send a message so clear, so terrifying, that no one would ever dare attack Earth again. Jake made his decision. "Colonel, relay orders to Captain Grant aboard the Vengeance. She is to take a strike force and pursue the Krall fleet. Her mission is not to destroy them completely, but to harass them all the way back to their territory. I want the Krall to feel hunted. I want them to understand that even in retreat they are not safe from humanity." Amy looked surprised. "Sir, that's a significant escalation. We'll be taking the fight into their space." "That's exactly the point, Colonel. We've shown we can defend Earth. Now we need to show that attacking us has consequences that extend beyond our borders. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity doesn't just react. We pursue." Amy nodded and moved to transmit the orders. Within minutes, the message reached the Vengeance. Captain Lisa Grant received the orders with a grim smile. "Looks like we're not done yet. Ben, select 30 ships from the fleet. I want our fastest vessels with the longest range. We're going hunting." Lieutenant Ben Parker quickly assembled a task force. The Vengeance would lead, accompanied by 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 11 fast attack frigates. It was a force large enough to handle any resistance, but small enough to move quickly. "All ships selected and ready, Captain," Ben reported. "They're waiting for your signal. Helm, plot pursuit course. We're following the Krall." The pursuing force accelerated away from Earth, heading for the point where the Krall had jumped to faster-than-light travel. Human ships were capable of matching Krall speeds, but they also had one significant advantage: endurance. Human vessels had been designed with long-range operations in mind. They carried more fuel, more supplies, and crews that could operate under stress for extended periods. The chase began in the deep space between star systems. Human sensors could track the dimensional signatures left by ships in faster-than-light travel. It was like following footprints through snow. The Krall fleet was running hard for home, but they were leaving a trail that humanity could follow. Aboard the fleeing destroyer of worlds, Admiral Zarkos was trying to assess his situation. The fleet had escaped Earth, but the losses weighed heavily on him. More than 2/3 of his force was gone. The survivors were battered and demoralized. Many ships had sustained damage that would require extensive repairs. "Admiral," Tekmar called out, his voice tense, "I'm detecting faster-than-light signatures behind us. Multiple contacts. The humans? It appears so, Admiral. I count 30 vessels. They're matching our speed and course." Zarkos felt his blood run cold. "They're pursuing us? Into deep space?" Commander Drackle looked equally shocked. "No species has ever done this before. Interstellar pursuit is considered too risky, too aggressive. It violates a dozen different galactic conventions." "Clearly the humans don't care about our conventions," Zarkos replied bitterly. "How long until we reach Krall space?" "At current speed, 4 days, Admiral." 4 days of being hunted by demons, Zarkos muttered. He raised his voice to address the fleet. "All ships maintain maximum speed. Do not engage the humans unless absolutely necessary. Our goal is to survive and reach home. Nothing else matters." The Krall fleet continued running, but the human ships were relentless. They maintained pursuit distance, never quite catching up but never falling behind either. It was psychological warfare at its finest. The Kraul knew the humans were back there watching, waiting. On the second day of the chase, the humans made their first strike. 3 damaged Kraul destroyers had fallen behind the main fleet, unable to maintain full speed with their damaged engines. The human frigates accelerated and caught them. Captain Jeff Cooper commanded the frigate Relentless. He had orders to harass, not destroy, but these 3 ships were isolated and vulnerable. It was an opportunity to send another message. Weapons, he called. Target the lead destroyer. Fire a warning shot across their bow. The Relentless launched a single missile that deliberately missed the Kraul ship by a wide margin. The meaning was clear: surrender or die. The Kraul destroyer's commander faced an impossible choice. His ship was damaged and alone. Behind him were 3 human vessels that had already demonstrated their deadly efficiency. Fighting would be suicide, but surrender would be dishonor. He chose dishonor in life. The destroyer powered down its weapons and broadcast a surrender signal. "Secure the vessel," Jeff ordered. "Board and take control." The other 2 are following suit. Human Marines trained in zero-gravity combat and equipped with powered armor boarded the Kraul ships. The Kraul crews offered no resistance. They had seen what humans could do and had no desire to experience it firsthand. The captured crews were transferred to the Relentless and the other frigates. The Kraul destroyers, now under human control, were set adrift with emergency beacons activated. Eventually, someone would find them and return them to the Kraul. But for now, they served as a monument to human dominance. Admiral Zarkos received word of the captures with mounting dread. The humans weren't just chasing them. They were picking off stragglers. His fleet was being hunted like prey animals. "Increase speed," he ordered. "Push the engines to maximum. I don't care if we burn out half the fleet, we need to reach crawl space before the humans pick us apart completely." But the human pursuit was methodical and patient. Captain Lisa Grant had no intention of letting the Kraul reach safety easily. Every few hours, her ships would make another run at the enemy fleet, targeting the weakest vessels, forcing the Kraul to either abandon their comrades or slow down to defend them. It was a cruel strategy, but it was effective. The Kraul fleet was fragmenting. The fastest ships pulled ahead while damaged vessels fell behind. Unity of the fleet was disintegrating under the constant pressure. Commander Alex Turner and Gold Squadron had been deployed from the Vengeance to scout ahead of the Kraul fleet. Their mission was to identify potential ambush points and relay targeting data back to the main force. "Gold leader to Vengeance," Alex reported. "I found something interesting. There's a debris field about 6 hours ahead of the Kraul fleet's current position. Looks like an old battlefield, maybe a century old. Lots of wreckage and asteroids. Can we use it?" Lisa asked. "Absolutely, ma'am. Perfect ambush position. We could hide half a dozen ships in there and the Kraul wouldn't know until they were right on top of us." "Outstanding work, Gold Leader. Return to the Vengeance. We're setting a trap." Lisa selected 6 destroyers for the ambush. They broke off from the main pursuit force and accelerated ahead, positioning themselves in the debris field. The rest of the human fleet fell back slightly, giving the Kraul a false sense of security. When the Kraul fleet reached the debris field, they were exhausted and desperate. They had been running for over 3 days with minimal rest. Crews were at the breaking point. Ships needed repairs. Morale was shattered. The ambush hit them like a hammer. 6 human destroyers emerged from hiding and struck at the center of the Kraul formation. Missiles and railgun fire tore into ships that were too tired to respond effectively. In the chaos, the Kraul fleet scattered, each ship fleeing in panic. The ambush lasted less than 20 minutes, but it cost the Kraul another 8 ships. The survivors regrouped and continued running, but now they were truly broken. They weren't an organized military force anymore. They were refugees fleeing a nightmare. Admiral Zarkos received damage reports with growing despair. His flagship was intact, but many of his officers were demanding that he surrender the entire fleet. The humans had proven their point. Continuing to run was just inviting more losses. But Zarkos couldn't surrender. To do so would mean the end of his career, his honor, possibly his life. The Kraul Dominion did not forgive. Captain Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, considering Admiral Zarkos's transmission. Around her, the crew waited silently for her decision. They had pursued the Kraul for 4 days across multiple star systems, fought 2 major engagements, and pushed deep into enemy territory. The question now was whether they had accomplished their mission. "Open a channel to the Admiral," Lisa ordered. When the connection was established, she looked at the image of the Kral commander on her screen. Zarkos looked old and tired, his scales dull, his posture defeated. This was not the proud warrior who had announced his intention to conquer Earth at the Galactic Council. "Admiral Zarkos," Lisa began, her voice calm but firm. "You came to Earth with 200 ships, intending to enslave my people. You lost over 140 ships in the battle. We pursued you across the galaxy and destroyed another dozen. We have shown you that humanity does not forgive attacks on our home, and we do not forget those who threaten us." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I will cease pursuit on 3 conditions. First, you will broadcast a message to the entire Kral Dominion explaining what happened at Earth. You will be honest about your defeat. Second, you will transmit all data about your fleet's capabilities, your weapons technology, and your military doctrine to us. Third, you will personally appear before the Galactic Council and apologize to humanity for your attempted invasion." Zarkos listened to the terms with visible pain. Each condition was designed to humiliate him and his species. But he had no choice. He was beaten and everyone knew it. "I accept your terms," he said quietly. "I will do as you demand." "Excellent," Lisa replied. "You have 24 hours to begin transmitting the military data. The broadcast to your people should happen within 48 hours. And the appearance before the Galactic Council should occur within 1 standard week. If you fail to meet any of these conditions, we will resume pursuit and we will not stop until your fleet is destroyed. Do you understand?" "I understand, Captain Grant. Then we are done here. Safe travels, Admiral, and I hope for your sake that we never meet again in battle." The transmission ended. Lisa turned to her crew. "Helm, set course back to Earth. It's time to go home." The human task force turned away from Kral's space and began the long journey back to Sol system. Behind them, they left a trail of destroyed ships, shattered pride, and a clear message to the galaxy. Earth was not to be threatened. The journey home took several days, during which news of the battle and pursuit spread across the galaxy at incredible speed. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Emergency sessions were called. Ambassadors from every species demanded answers. The military engagement between humans and the Kral had violated numerous treaties and conventions. But more than anything, the galactic community was shocked by what humanity had demonstrated. They weren't just defending their home. They were projecting power across interstellar distances. They were pursuing enemies into hostile territory. They were fighting with a level of aggression and effectiveness that most species had forgotten existed. Ambassador Katie Morrison found herself at the center of the storm. She sat in her quarters on the council station, reviewing reports and preparing for the inevitable confrontations. Danny and Nicole were with her, helping to coordinate responses to the hundreds of messages flooding in from other delegations. "Katie," Danny said, looking up from his datapad, "the Erethi want to censure us for violating Kral sovereignty. The Tholians want to commend us for defending ourselves. The Vorten want to propose a military alliance, and at least a dozen species are requesting immediate meetings to discuss trade agreements." Katie smiled slightly. "Everyone wants to be friends with the dangerous humans now." "How predictable. What do we do?" Nicole asked. "We wait. Let them panic. Let them argue among themselves. When they're ready to talk seriously, they'll come to us with real proposals instead of empty words." 3 days after the pursuit ended, Admiral Zarkos broadcast his message to the Kral Dominion. It was carried on every communication channel, impossible to ignore or suppress. Billions of Kral watched as their military leader admitted defeat and explained what had happened at Earth. "Citizens of the Dominion," Zarkos began, his voice heavy with shame, "I must inform you of a great tragedy. The invasion of Earth has failed catastrophically. Of the 203 ships that I led to their system, only 53 survive. We were defeated by a species we believed to be primitive. We were wrong." He went on to describe the battle in detail, the hidden human fleet, the devastating weapons, the relentless tactics, the pursuit across the galaxy. Every word was painful for him to speak, but he spoke them all. The humans had demanded honesty, and he would give it to them. "The humans are not primitives," he concluded. "They are a warrior species with capabilities that exceed our understanding. I have accepted responsibility for this disaster. I will appear before the Galactic Council to formally apologize to humanity, and I recommend to the Dominion leadership that we never, under any circumstances, consider military action against Earth again. We are not equipped to fight such an enemy." The broadcast ended. Across crawlspace, the reaction was a mixture of shock, anger, and fear. Some called for Zarkos to be executed for his failure. Others demanded revenge against the humans, but the military leadership understood what the general population did not. Humanity had shown mercy by allowing any survivors at all. If they wanted to, they could have pursued the Krall fleet all the way to the homeworld and turned it into a battlefield. The Dominion would not be seeking revenge. They would be avoiding humanity at all costs. On Earth, the reaction to the victory was celebration mixed with sober reflection. General Jake Palmer addressed the planet in a worldwide broadcast. "People of Earth," he began, "I am pleased to report that the Krall invasion has been defeated. Our fleet performed magnificently. Our personnel showed courage and skill beyond measure. We have sent a clear message to the galaxy. Earth is not prey. We are not victims. We are survivors, and we will defend our home against any threat." He paused, his expression becoming more serious. "But we must also recognize that this victory comes with a cost. 412 of our people died in the battle. Thousands more were wounded. These men and women gave their lives to protect our planet and our future. We honor them. We remember them. And we commit ourselves to building a future worthy of their sacrifice." The broadcast continued with details about memorial services, support for families of the fallen, and plans for Earth's continued military development. The message was clear. Humanity was prepared to defend itself, but it also remembered the price of war. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council convened its most important session in decades. Every delegate was present. The chamber was packed. Observers from hundreds of species crowded into viewing areas. This was history being made. Chairman Veldan called the session to order with visible difficulty. His usual calm demeanor was strained. "We are here to address the recent conflict between the Krall Dominion and humanity. Ambassador Zekthor, you are recognized." The Krall ambassador stood, but it was not Zekthor who had made the original declaration of war. That ambassador had been recalled in disgrace. The new representative was an older, more diplomatic individual named Lorcan. "Honored Chairman, fellow delegates," Lorcan began. "The Krall Dominion acknowledges that we initiated an unprovoked attack against Earth. We believed humans to be primitives. We were catastrophically wrong. On behalf of my people, I offer formal apology to humanity for our actions." This caused a stir in the chamber. Apologies were rare in galactic politics. For a proud species like the Krall to admit fault was almost unprecedented. Admiral Zarkos then came forward. He looked even more worn than he had during the pursuit. He walked to the center of the chamber and stood before the human delegation. "Ambassador Morrison," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "I am the one who led the invasion of your world. I am responsible for the deaths of your people. I believed my fleet to be superior. I believed your species to be weak. I have learned the truth at a terrible price." He paused and then did something shocking. He lowered himself to one knee, a gesture of submission in Krall culture. "I apologize for my arrogance. I apologize for threatening your world. I accept whatever judgment you deem appropriate." Katie Morrison stood slowly. She looked at the kneeling admiral for a long moment. Every being in the chamber waited to see what humanity's response would be. "Admiral Zarkos," Katie said clearly, "your apology is accepted. Rise." Zarkos stood, looking surprised. "You came to Earth seeking slaves," Katie continued. "You found soldiers. You came expecting an easy victory. You found a nightmare. But you also showed a quality that we respect. You accepted defeat and took responsibility for your actions. For that, humanity will not seek further punishment against you personally." Relief flooded Zarkos's features. "However," Katie added, "there will be consequences for the Krall Dominion. Earth demands full access to Krall trade routes. We demand the right to establish a military observation post at the border between Krall space and neutral territory. And we demand that the Krall Dominion pay reparations to the families of those who died defending Earth."